Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This story isn't mine, it's my friend's, and I'll try to give as much context as possible. After riding my bike in the park for a while, I returned home and was bombarded with messages from my friend on my phone saying there was a fight here in the park. I asked him to explain it better, and this is what he said. Some boys were playing soccer in the park next to a little girl who was between 6 and 8 years old. One of the boys kicked the ball too hard and ended up hitting the little girl, who dropped her iPhone on the floor and it broke. The girl's mother was furious and started screaming at the boy. His mother, who was nearby, saw that and went to interfere. The mother was pregnant. This is important. It didn't take long for the mother screaming to increase in tone, and soon the entitled mother slapped the pregnant mother, who was on a step and almost fell. If she had fallen, she would have lost the baby, no doubt. The argument only got worse after that and continued for a few minutes until the condo guards intervened. Thank God they did. The two were going to start hitting each other there. As far as my friend knows, the condo guards called the cops and the mother ended up pressing charges against Karen. I worked at a company straight out of high school that deals with sports and workwear as well as branding. I went to the interview for a storeman responsible for the cage, a place where we kept orders that were ready to be delivered as well as orders that are still awaiting payment. Starting in early 2018, and it went well for the first 2 months. Then I found boxes of orders from more than 6 years ago and asked my boss about it. Her answer was to move me from the warehouse to the financial department to find out why they are still there. Now first, I know almost nothing about finance. Secondly, as a guy of over 2 meters tall sitting at a desk in a small office just doesn't work. But it came with a new job title, finance administrator, whatever that is, and a pay raise. So fine with me getting paid more for the same job, and all I have to do is go through some old papers as well. Sign me up. So over the next couple of months I made a list. I went through the whole cage and found more old orders. I found more than 80 orders totaling over a couple million in value. Every time I figured out why they were still there, I added a reason to the list, as well as saying what had happened to the items. My boss would look good in front of the owner. If there was no reason as to why it was still there or why it was there to begin with, my boss took that box and I never thought of it again. I just updated the list, which was boss took that order. So when I finally had a reason for every order older than 1 month that was still there, I got a raise again and went back to the original job I was hired for, still with the finance administrator title on my contract. I was suddenly called to my boss's office where I was told I was useless and not doing my job, and I was promptly fired. And here is where my revenge comes in. That list I had on my computer, and the only copy of the list was in my personal email, as I would work from home sometimes. I hand-wrote the list and typed it at home. So when I went to hand in my laptop, I made sure to remove everything that I did from it. No list, no emails, nothing left. I then contacted a lawyer to ask for advice. My dad recommended I do this, saying they have no valid reason for firing me. My lawyer had a field day with the case. I got more than 2 years worth of pay, my full contracted time, as well as an apology from my B of an ex-boss. But it doesn't end there. I contacted the owner of the company and informed them that I still had the list, and how B had fired me without reason, cost the company money, and how she took stock if I couldn't find a reason as to why it was still there. He informed me that he will look into this, and I sent him the list out of good faith. He was a nice guy the few times I met him. Finally, today I was talking to a friend that still works there, and I was told that the police had shown up and had dragged that B away in cuffs for stealing stock. I was 10 years old when Karen attacked me with a crutch and threw my bike into the river. It was a hot summer day and my friends and I were just trying to have a good time. We were riding our bikes around the neighborhood, laughing and chasing each other when Karen came out of her house like a bat out of hell. Karen was an entitled woman who lived in a big house right on the river. She was always complaining about the noise we made when we played outside, and I guess she just snapped that day. She came at me with what seemed like her poor husband's crutch, yelling and swinging it around. I tried to pedal away, but she was too fast. She grabbed my bike and yanked it out from under me, sending me crashing to the ground. "What do you think you're doing?" I yelled, dropping my scraped elbow.
"I'm sick of you kids making all that racket."
Karen spat back.
"That's the last time you're going to see that damn bike of yours."
And with that, she hoisted my bike up over her shoulder and started walking towards the river. My friends and I were in shock and we just stood there staring as Karen waded out into the water and tossed my bike into the river. I was so angry, I couldn't even speak. My bike was my pride and joy, and Karen had just ruined it. I stormed back to my house and told my dad what had happened. He was the local sheriff. He was livid, and he immediately called the cavalry and brought the whole station down to her doorstep. My father, the sheriff, stormed up to Karen's house, his face red with anger, and banged on her door. She answered a few moments later with a smug look on her face.
"What do you want?"
Karen asked, crossing her arms over her chest. "I want to know what the hell you were thinking, attacking my son and drowning his bike." The sheriff yelled, "He's just a kid, and you had no right to do what you did."
"I was sick of that racket they were making,"
Karen replied, rolling her eyes.
"They were driving me crazy with all their noise."
"That's no excuse. You could have told me and I would have taken care of it," the sheriff said, his voice low and dangerous. "You have no right to attack someone, especially not a kid. You're coming with me to the police station." Karen's smug expression disappeared, replaced by a look of panic.
"You can't be serious,"
she said.
"I'm not going anywhere with you."
"Oh, I'm serious," he said, grabbing Karen's arm and leading her towards his squad car. "You're going to pay for what you did, Karen. You can count on it." Karen was arrested and charged with assault, vandalism, and destruction of private property. I personally never saw her again, but I heard that she spent a few months in jail. I guess she learned her lesson about messing with the sheriff's kid. It's been 10 years since that incident, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. I still have scars on my elbow from where I scraped it on the pavement, and I still think about that poor bike that was thrown into the river. Karen may have been an entitled woman, but she made a huge mistake that day. As I walked into the grocery store, I let out a sigh of relief. It had been a long, hard day at work, and I was looking forward to getting my errands done and heading home. I grabbed a cart and started down the produce aisle, my mind already on the dinner I was planning to cook. And that's when I noticed the elderly lady struggling to reach a jar of pickles on the top shelf. Without thinking, I offered to grab it for her. "Thank you so much, dear," she said, smiling gratefully at me. "Could you help me with a few more things? I don't usually come to this store and I'm having a hard time finding everything on my list." I hesitated for a moment, not wanting to seem rude, but I also didn't want to lead her on and give the impression that I was actually working there. So I gently explained, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm just a customer here. I'm happy to help you find what you need, but I can't actually work for the store." The sweet old lady looked disappointed, but she quickly recovered and patted my arm. "Oh, I'm sorry, dear. I just assumed with how helpful and kind you were that you must have worked here. Thank you anyway for your help." I felt a warm glow in my chest at her words, and I was happy to spend the next few minutes helping her find the items on her list. As we made our way around the store, she told me stories about her life and her children, and I found myself charmed by her wit and kindness. "So, what do you do for work?" she asked as we reached the dairy section. "I'm an engineer," I replied. "I work in construction." "Oh, That sounds interesting. She said, my husband was an engineer too. He always loved building things. We chatted for a few more minutes before she handed me her list and asked if I could help her find the rest of the items. I was happy to oblige, and we spent the next half hour wandering the aisles of the store, chatting and laughing. As we made our way around the store, the sweet old lady told me stories about her life and her children. She had 3 daughters and several grandchildren, and she told me about their various accomplishments and adventures. My oldest daughter is a doctor, she said proudly. She works in the emergency room at the hospital in the city. And my youngest daughter is a teacher. She loves working with children. And she went on to tell me about her grandchildren, who were all grown up and living their own lives. But she said that they often visited her and that she loved spending time with them. I am so lucky to have such wonderful children and grandchildren, she said, a smile spreading across her face. I am so grateful for all the love and joy they bring into my life. As we continued our conversation, I couldn't help but be touched by the love and pride the sweet old lady had for her family. It was clear that they meant everything to her, and I found myself feeling grateful for my own family as well. As we approached the checkout, the sweet old lady thanked me again for my help. You've been such a big help, dear. I don't know what I would have done without you. I obliged at her words and helped her load her groceries onto the conveyor belt. As we said goodbye, I felt like I had made a friend. The encounter with the sweet old lady at the grocery store was a small moment, but it was one that left a lasting impression on me. It reminded me that a little kindness can go a long way, and that sometimes it's the smallest interactions that can brighten our day. After saying goodbye to the sweet old lady, I finished my errands and headed to the checkout myself. As I was loading my groceries onto the conveyor belt, the store manager approached me with a smile. I just wanted to thank you for your help earlier, he said. I saw you assisting that elderly lady and it was really appreciated. Can I offer you a discount on your groceries and a thank you? I was taken aback by his kindness and gratefully accepted the discount. As I was leaving the store, one of the workers offered to help me carry my groceries out to my car. I was overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness and gestures of goodwill from the store staff. It was a small thing, but it left a big impression on me. It reminded me of the power of good deeds and how a little bit of kindness can go a long way. I left the store feeling uplifted and grateful, and I knew that the good karma I had generated that day would come back to me in some way. It was a reminder that no act of kindness is too small, and that we can all make a positive impact on the world around us. We have me, my brother, mom, and dad, as well as an entitled mom and her 2 kids. Around 10 or so, I don't know, but they were definitely younger than my brother, who was 13 at the time. Around 5 years ago, we were taking a family vacation to the Midwest to visit my grandparents. It was pretty foggy that night, so we weren't surprised when they cancelled our flight that evening. My dad went to the ticket counter and they issued us tickets for a new flight the next day, as well as some vouchers, and offered us a hotel for the evening. But my dad said we lived 13 minutes away, so that was not necessary. We collected our luggage after they unloaded the plane and went to our car in the long-term parking lot to load up and head home for the evening. We then heard a banging on our truck and my door opened and one of the kids threw his bag in and told me to move over. And the mother came to the driver's side window and knocked. When my dad rolled down the window, she looked in and said, "We need to get our luggage in the trunk. Can you open it?" Dad looked at her and said, "No, we're going home and not giving rides to anyone." By this time, I had thrown the kid's bag off my lap and out the door while he kept whining at me to move over. The mom looked around the interior and said, "You think the airline will provide a bigger car for 2 families?" Dad then figured out that she was from our flight and said, "No ma'am, this isn't from the airline. It is our car and we'd like to go home now." My mom, knowing that my dad and I have quick tempers, tried to defuse the situation by saying, "If the airline has a car for you, it's probably downstairs, or go back to the desk and ask again where it might be." They might even have a shuttle bus for you to a hotel." The mom scoffed and said,
Why do we have to settle for a bus when we got a nice BMW?
Dad said in an angry tone, "Lady, this is my car. I own it." Dad then pulled out and we drove home for the evening. The next day we went back to the airport and the fog had lifted. So we were pretty sure we'd get out that day. Be in first class. Not trying to brag, just giving facts. We got on the plane first and sat down. Then the mom and her kids got on, and as she passed us, she saw my brother and I already seated and sipping on our drinks. We were both underage, so they were probably Sprites or water, don't remember. She also recognized our parents and summoned the flight attendant and then asked her why we got compensated with first-class seats while she and her kids were back in coach, and that they had been inconvenienced as much as us and her kids had never flown first class before. The flight attendant said that these were our seats and they were not compensation. I guess that instead of booking us on a pre-existing flight, they got a plane out of the hangar and made an entirely new flight. I could be wrong, but we got our original seats. So I don't know. It was a pretty uneventful flight, and after we had landed and were a baggage claim, Dad said, "I hope she doesn't see the car your grandparents are picking us up in." Don't know if she ever did. We got our bags and got picked up and never saw the lady again. Kept thinking throughout the trip we might run into her somewhere, but we never did. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.